This happened about 25 years ago. I was 35, working as a documentation specialist at a government facility. I thought it was important to ensure transparency in military operations. I spent long hours in that cold office, surrounded by flickering fluorescent lights and dusty files. Most days were quiet, just me and the low hum of lights above. But that night, things felt different. That I was settling in as the sun went down. I started going through boxes of old documents. That's when I came across the 1995 reports. My heart sank as I read. Soldiers described shadowy figures lurking in the distance. They talked about strange lights in the sky and units that had disappeared without a trace. I felt a chill run down my spine. These accounts seemed too bizarre to be real. As I absorbed their words, the lights overhead flickered again. I brushed it aside, thinking it was just my imagination. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me. I turned around, half expecting to see someone standing behind me. Nothing. Just shadows that shifted in the corners of the room. Then I started to hear it. First, it was just faint footsteps. I paused, straining to listen. They grew louder. Breathing. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just the wind or old pipes. But that uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. I could almost feel something creeping up my spine. I pushed myself to read further. One particular report caught my eye. It described a whole unit lost during a training exercise. Nobody ever found them. What happened? Where did they go? Goosebumps prickled my skin. I wanted to believe it was all just stories. But I could feel the weight of something dark in the air. Then I heard a soft whisper just outside my door. I stopped, frozen in place. I wanted to call out, ask if someone was there. But my voice disappeared in my throat. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. I crept towards the door. Just then, a loud bang shook the office. My heart raced. Was someone messing with me? I spun around, but there was still nothing behind me. I felt so cold. I wondered if I should have kept digging deeper. Maybe I crossed a line I shouldn't have. I looked back at the documents. My hands trembled. I could feel my breathing grow heavy. Then I heard the voice again. Why are you still here? It didn't sound like someone I knew. I turned around, heart thumping. Nobody was there. The shadows shifted, almost as if they were alive. I backed away slowly, feeling the walls close in. I told myself I needed to leave. But every second I hesitated made it feel like I was too late. That voice echoed in my ears. Why are you still here? I couldn't shake it. I darted towards the exit, praying I wouldn't look back. But I couldn't help myself. Was something watching me? Did it want me to stay? That night changed everything, and I've never stopped thinking about what I found. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread as I left the office that night. The fluorescent lights buzzing behind me made it feel like they had a life of their own. My car was parked in the dimly lit lot, a lonely island under the stars. Each step towards it felt heavy, like I was dragging some unseen weight. The next morning, I decided to talk to my supervisor. I needed to know if anyone else had experienced the odd occurrences in that office. As I approached his desk, he looked up, eyes glazed over, like he hadn't slept at all. I could see he was processing something heavily. Did you find anything interesting yesterday? He asked, the words clipped, eyes darting to the floor. I nodded. Some reports from 95. They described strange happenings during training exercises, units going missing. His face paled, and he leaned back in his chair. You shouldn't dig into that. Some things are better left alone. His tone sent a shiver down my spine, but I pressed on. What do you mean? Did something happen? He hesitated, looking around the office as if it was listening. Not here. Just don't go back there. I weighed his words. What was he afraid of? But I couldn't let it go. I decided to return to that cold office. If there were answers hidden among the reports, I had to find them. That night, I crept back in, the air thick with unease. The door squeaked as I entered, and I felt a rush of familiar chill wash over me. The shadows seemed to stretch and welcome me back. I sat down, my hands trembling as I reopened the box of documents. I found more reports detailing the same eerie accounts. But this time, there was something new. One document mentioned a specific date, a critical enough event that occurred right before the reported disappearances. My eyes widened. It was the same date I found on the calendar at work. Then, out of nowhere, the lights flickered wildly, plunging the room into darkness. I felt a jolt of panic. I fumbled for my phone, the weak light barely cutting through the shadows. I could have sworn I heard whispers, multiple voices overlapping each other. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. "Why were you drawn back?" One voice asked, sharper than the others. "Leave," another hissed, laced with urgency. I felt a sharp cold breeze brush against my neck. I spun around, sensing movement but saw nothing. That's when I noticed the bottom drawer of my desk was slightly ajar. I hadn't left it open. A rush of terror hit me. What if whatever was inside was trying to communicate? Every instinct screamed at me to get out, but this pull toward the drawer was stronger. I approached it, trembling. My fingers hesitated just above the handle. Then I heard it again, closer this time, "You shouldn't have come back." The air thickened with dread, and my heart raced. I had to find out what was inside. As I yanked the drawer open, everything went dark again, but this time I wasn't alone. I felt a presence shift in the darkness, heavy and watchful. The moment I yanked open the drawer, an otherworldly chill seeped into the room. I couldn't see anything around me, but I could feel it, the weight of eyes, unblinking and full of intent. My fingers trembled as I reached inside. I wasn't prepared for what I found. A small, faded photograph fell out, fluttering into my palm. I held it up to the dim light, squinting through the darkness. It depicted a group of soldiers, their faces grim and serious, standing in front of a structure I didn't recognize. The background was a shadowy landscape, almost unearthly. I recognized one face, my supervisor. Panic hit me. Why was he there? What was he not telling me? I stared deeper into the photograph, feeling a pull. Something wasn't right, the soldiers looked haunted, like they had seen too much. I dropped the picture, horrified, and it slipped from my fingers, landing with a soft thud on the floor. The whispers surged again, frantic and overlapping. "Find the truth. Leave now." The voices echoed, riddled with fear and desperation. My heart raced, and I sank to the floor, instinctively wanting to hide. The drawer lay open before me, but the darkness around became thicker, as if it were a living entity wrapping its fingers around me. I steadied my breath, straining to listen over the cacophony. That's when I noticed a faint glow emanating from deeper within the drawer. My curiosity battled my fear. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to see what it was. I leaned in, ignoring the warnings pounding in my mind. My hands trembled as I reached deeper. As soon as my fingers grazed the surface of what lay within, the whispers escalated. "You're not supposed to be here." A voice shrieked, vibrating with anger. I felt a sharp pain in my hand and yanked it back. That I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, echoing in the silence. The lights flickered back on, and I was met with a new terror. The shadows twisted against the walls like they were alive, stretching towards me. I could hear my own breath, shaky and terrified. "Show us," another voice rasped. "You must understand." The drawer seemed to pulse, alive with energy. That I pressed my back against the desk, glancing around for an escape. But all I could see were those faces in the photographs, their eyes pleading. I felt the temperature drop again, and the whispers began to form a chant, repeating a name. "Delaney. Delaney. Delaney. Panic surged through me. I recognized the name. It was a name from the reports. A soldier from the fateful event. I needed answers, but every instinct told me to run. What did you do? I whispered into the darkness. The shadows surged, and for a moment, everything fell silent. Then I saw it. A figure emerged from the darkness, its outline flickering like the dying light. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The whispers paused, waiting, that's when I realized, the figure was still, but it was pointing at something behind me. I felt a new wave of dread crash over me. I turned slowly, bracing myself for whatever lay in the depths of the office. And then everything went black again. The darkness was absolute, suffocating. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust, but the blackness was relentless. I could barely hear my own heartbeat over a distant thrumming sound. Then, slowly, the shadows began to lift, revealing a figure standing in the corner of the room that I held my breath. It was tall and gaunt, head slightly cocked as if analyzing me. I didn't dare move. I felt like a mouse caught in a cat's gaze. Then, the figure began to shift and twist, the edges of its form blurring. I flinched as fear surged through me. Delaney, the figure hissed, its voice a low, raspy whisper that made my skin crawl. Despite the terror, I couldn't look away. You must see. See what? I croaked. What are you? The figure pointed again, this time more insistently, urging me to look beyond it. Hesitantly, I turned my gaze to where its long, bony finger was directed. At first, I saw nothing in the shadows, but then I spotted a glimmer, a small, metallic object partially hidden under a discarded piece of paper. With trepidation, I approached the object. As I moved closer, the thrumming amplified, vibrating through the air. My foot brushed against something sharp on the floor, and I stumbled, nearly falling. I steadied myself and reached down to pull free the object. It was a small badge, its surface marred but still gleaming with authority. U.S. Army, I read aloud, feeling a chill creep up my spine. I flipped the badge over, and there it was, a name, a face. Delaney. What happened to you? I whispered, the weight of the investigation pressing down on me. Before I could process the unfolding revelation, the air grew heavy. The whispers returned, louder and more frantic. Understand. Understand. Their urgency sent chills racing down my arms. The figure loomed closer, seemingly absorbing the whispers, yet it remained muted, silent to my questions. That I glanced back at the badge, my mind racing. I remembered the report, the incident. What was it about Delaney that cast this shadow? Had he seen something in that fateful event? Something that could explain the figure before me? Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and an oppressive force swept through the room. I stumbled back and collided with the desk. Papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves, each one bringing a memory. Then I noticed it. A binder, thick and battered, lay open on the desk. As I reached for it, a cold gust swept through the room, sending shivers across my back. The whispers changed, turning to a single phrase, "You should not know." I flipped through the pages, scanning the contents. Diagrams, reports, and accounts of unexplained encounters poured into view. Each one seemed more incredible than the last, but the similarities were unsettling. All described soldiers who had encountered strange beings, and all had a connection to Delaney. A sudden noise pulled my attention back to the figure. Its face was now distorted, shadows swirling as it screamed silently in my direction. I could feel an urgent compulsion to understand, then everything went quiet again. The whispers faded, leaving only my ragged breathing and the now still figure. A moment passed, lingering like a drawn-out breath. That's when I saw it, a verification stamp in the binder, dated exactly to a specific event, November 13, 1995. My heart dropped. If I was right, then this wasn't just an old case. There was something deeper hidden here, something that wanted me to discover the truth, and that truth was about to lead me into danger. I took a step back, my mind racing. November 13, 1995. Was that the day everything changed? I needed to know more. I had stumbled across something that felt enormous, something that could explain the shadowy figures, the whispered warnings, and Delaney's haunting presence. I grabbed the binder, clutching it tightly. The air still felt thick, oppressive. The figure remained motionless, but its presence was palpable, like a storm hanging low, waiting to unleash its fury. I dared glance back at it, my heart pounding. "What do you want me to understand?" I whispered to the silence, but the figure only watched, its elongated form flickering like a dying light. Ignoring my growing unease, I sketched notes on a scrap of paper, trying to peel back whatever truth lay buried within those pages. A sense of urgency bubbled inside me. I could feel time slipping away. What if someone else was looking for this information? What if they wanted to keep it hidden, maybe even silenced? I flipped through the binder with greater fervor, drawing out reports that detailed strange sightings, shapes flitting in the night, soldiers reporting feelings of dread, and whispers that begged for attention. Then I reached a page scrawled with hasty handwriting and diagrams of strange symbols. The images seemed familiar, sparking something deep within my memory. Suddenly, I remembered an old tale my grandmother used to tell, about entities that roamed unseen, pressing into our world from the edges of reality. Could those whispers connect to what soldiers had encountered? I was about to pull out my phone to take pictures of the pages when the lights flickered again. This time, it wasn't just a flicker. The power surged and plunged the room into deeper darkness. I froze. In the dark, I heard it heavy breathing, different from my own. Panic coursed through me. Someone or something was in the room. The vivid memories of Delaney's whispered "you must see" echoed, spurring my instincts. I set the binder down and squeezed into the corner for cover, praying the figure would shield me from whatever was approaching. The breathing grew louder, mingling with the thrumming sound, and was followed by a low, guttural growl. My pulse raced. Should I run? Hide? No, I chided myself. I needed answers. If Delaney had been a victim of this darkness, then so could I. I held my breath, trying to listen for any sign of movement, any clue about what stood in the room with me. Then, faintly, I heard a voice, broken and strained. "Help me." I darted my eyes wide open, and I knew I was in deeper than I ever expected. That plea wasn't just a cry from the shadows. It was a plea that could lead me to the truth, a truth I now understood was intertwined with my own fate. And just as the darkness took hold again, I found something else hidden in the binder, a photograph tucked into the back. I pulled it free, my breath hitching. The moment I looked at it, I understood that finding the truth would come at a price. I found out who Delaney was, but now I had questions that would drag me further into the unknown. Questions that might be digging my own grave. The air grew colder as I stood frozen, the photograph clutched tightly between my fingers. It showed Delaney, her familiar face, full of life, but there was something else too. Behind her, almost obscured by the flickering shadows, was a figure unlike anything I recognized. It was dark, almost blending into the background, but its presence radiated a sense of threat that made my stomach knot. That I blinked, trying to make sense of it. Had she known? Had she been caught in something far greater than herself? The whisper in the dark echoed in my mind, "Help me." Delaney's eyes, striking and full of determination, contrasted sharply with the figure lurking behind her. I felt a chill, as if she might have been reaching out to me for a reason beyond this moment. My instinct screamed at me to get out, but I couldn't leave without knowing more. I needed to understand who or what that figure was, and whether it was connected to the creature breathing in the dark. I quickly flipped the photograph to examine the back, hoping for any clues. As I did, I noticed another scribble: coordinates, a location etched hastily. I gasped softly, my mind racing. What did this mean? Did Delaney want me to go there? The figure in the room was almost forgotten. The urgency of Delaney's message was pulling me toward the coordinates. Before I could think further, a loud bang rattled through the space, making me jump. The power surged again, and I fought against the red alarm in my head that screamed for me to flee. But my feet felt glued to the floor. I was on the edge of something monumental, and I didn't want to back down now. The growling became more pronounced, a rumbling well of despair that seemed to seep into my very bones. I ducked down into the corner, the binder still clutched tightly against my chest. Shadows danced around me, and I dared to peek toward the origin of the sound in that moment. I saw it, a pair of eyes piercing through the dark, glinting like shards of glass. They were filled with an unfathomable hunger, and I instinctively recoiled. The urge to scream clawed at my throat, but I stifled it, forcing myself to stay quiet. "Help me," the voice came again, this time sharper, more insistent. My heart raced. Did it mean Delaney? Or was it something else, an echo of despair from the figure now watching me? A different part of me stirred. What if this presence wasn't just something to fear? What if it was a messenger? I steadied my breath, trying to shake off the icy grip of terror. The figure might inspire horror, but it could also reveal the truth. I had to confront it. With shaky resolve, I pulled myself from the corner and stood up. The lights flickered again, then settled in a dim glow. For the first time, I saw that the figure wasn't an amorphous shape. There was something distinctly human about it, though twisted. It opened its mouth, it looked like it was forming words, that as when I saw something flash next to it, a glimpse of movement, a terrifying speed. Right as I prepared to take a step forward, a loud crash broke through my tense focus. Books tumbled off the nearby shelf, scattering across the floor, sending up a cloud of dust. I turned my head towards the noise out of instinct, but as I did, the figure lunged forward. Whatever veil of certainty I had was shattered. I knew I had to leave because the truth was getting too close. The air thickened with uncertainty, and I was left wondering if I had just awakened something I could never put back to sleep. I stumbled back, the confusion mixing with sheer panic as I realized I had no escape. The figure advanced, but the fear in its eyes mirrored my own. Its breath was ragged, echoing in the silence. Despair wrapped around me, tightening like a noose. "Run!" I thought, but my body wouldn't obey. Instead, I found myself drawn to the shattered remains of the books on the floor. I crouched low and grabbed the nearest one, my hand instinctively searching for anything I could use, something to defend myself or maybe even to understand this creature. To my surprise, I recognized the book by its battered cover. It was one of Delaney's favorites, filled with tales of folklore and strange encounters. The irony clawed at me. The very thing that connected me to her was now my flimsy shield against a shadow that seemed to know me too well. The air shifted again, and I could feel the figure's presence closing in, almost breathing down my neck. Its mouth formed the words like a ritualistic chant. "Help me." It was louder now, as if the plea pulsed through the air. I wanted to respond, to ask what it needed, but I couldn't manage more than a breathy whisper. "Delaney? Is that you?" My own voice echoed back, hollow and weak. In a moment of wild desperation, I held up the book toward it, as if it were a talisman. "Do you want this?" It wasn't a rational move, but rage and fear often overrode sound judgment. Its gaze fell to the book, and suddenly, the air changed. The growling quieted, replaced by an eerie stillness. The figure faltered, its dark edges sharpening momentarily. It seemed almost human, but the terror remained, twisted into its features. "Go," it rasped, a request buried beneath layers of something darker. The urgency in its voice struck me. I thought of the coordinates, the message Delaney had left behind. This wasn't just some mindless creature, it was a plea for help lost in desperation. I couldn't just run. I had to dig deeper. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, feeling the weight of the moment settle. The figure recoiled, its brows furrowing in pain. "Find the truth, before it's too late." As it spoke, the atmosphere shifted again, vibrating with an electric tension. Something in its words propelled me forward, pushing aside my instinct to flee. "The truth?" I asked, clutching the book tighter. "What truth?" But then, before it could respond, the shadows below it twisted violently. The air crackled, and I could feel a pull, a gravitational shift that drew my attention away. The creature's form began to blur, flickering like an old film reel, then everything went black that I gasped as the light returned, a blinding flash followed by silence. I blinked hard, adjusting to the sudden brightness. I wasn't in the same room anymore. I stood in an empty field, the moon looming oversized in the sky. The air felt different here, charged and sharp. Confusion gripped me. Where was I? My heart raced as I turned around, realizing I was alone. But the photograph was still in my hand, and right underneath the coordinates was a new note, handwritten, shaky, only at the place where shadows touched the light. I shivered as the weight of the situation crashed over me. I had to find Delaney. And the only way to do that was to uncover the truth, wherever it might lead. I felt the cold air wrap around me, sending shivers down my spine. The empty field buzzed with a strange energy, almost alive in the darkness. Now, I had a mission to uncover the truth, though I felt utterly unprepared. The note burned in my hand, its message urging me forward. Only at the place where shadows touched the light. What did it mean? I scanned the vastness around me, searching for any hint of direction. The moon hung low, casting long shadows on the ground, and I felt like a ghost, wandering in someone else's story. That I took a deep breath and began to move, my feet crunching against the dry grass as I forged ahead. The night sky was a tapestry of stars, but I couldn't focus on their beauty. My mind was consumed with questions. What had Delaney found? Why was that figure so desperate for my help? As I walked, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned, squinting into the darkness. There it was again, a shadow darting between the trees at the edge of the field. I took a step closer, heart pounding. My instincts screamed to run, yet curiosity held me in place. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. There was no response, just the rustle of leaves. I gripped the book tightly, knowing it couldn't protect me, but clinging to it nonetheless. That I cautiously approached the tree line, peering into the depths of the shadows. "Was that you?" I whispered, half afraid to disturb whatever mystery lay within. Just then, a figure emerged from behind a tree, its silhouette barely illuminated by the moonlight. Everything in me tensed. This wasn't the creature from before, but uncertainty shadowed my judgment. The figure stepped closer, revealing a face that sent a jolt of recognition through me. "Wait. Weren't you Carter?" the figure replied, his tone sharp and urgent. "You need to follow me, we don't have much time." I wanted to ask who he was, what he knew, why he was here. But something in his eyes told me this was no time for questions. Before I could respond, he turned and began walking away, glancing back to ensure I followed. A mix of fear and intrigue pulled me forward. "Where are we going?" I managed to ask, trying to keep up with his long strides. "To the coordinates," he replied, voice low, eyes darting. "There's something there. Something Delaney found. It's connected to everything." The urgency in his words sparked a flame of hope. "You know her?" "Not just know. I'm part of this," he said, the weight of his admission sinking in. "She was right to dig, but she went in too deep. We need the truth before it consumes us." That struck a chord deep within me. "Then what are we waiting for?" We dashed toward the trees, shadows and light merging in that space. With each step, I could feel the tension tightening around us, thick and heavy, almost like it was alive. The thought of what lay ahead thrilled and terrified me. But no sooner had we entered the woods than something from behind us rustled. I whirled around, dread pooling in my stomach. The shadows began to shift again, pulsing ominously, as if warning us to turn back. "Carter, we need to move," I shouted, adrenaline kicking in. But as we took off, I had no idea what awaited us at the end of this path, only that it was the only chance I had left to find Delaney, and I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. As we plunged deeper into the woods, the air thickened around us. I could barely see the ground beneath my feet, the darkness swallowing everything. Carter led the way, keeping a steady pace, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every snap of a twig made me flinch, and every rustle in the underbrush sent a chill racing up my spine. "Where did you say you were taking me?" I asked, not daring to look back. I wanted to get to the truth, but doubt gnawed at me. What if this was a trap? What if Carter had something more sinister in mind? "Just trust me." "It's close," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper now. My heart raced, knowing I didn't have much choice. I had to trust him if anything, he was my only lead to Delaney. My thoughts turned back to her, wondering how deep she had gone before things went wrong. We reached a clearing, the trees thinning out. Moonlight bathed the area, and I felt a strange tension in the air, almost electric. "This is it," Carter said, coming to a halt. He pointed toward the ground. "Right here." I glanced down and saw nothing but dirt and some scattered leaves. "What are we looking for?" Carter knelt, brushing away some of the leaves with urgency. I tried to peer over his shoulder, anxiety growing as he scraped at the earth. There was something unsettling about the way he was acting, like he was both afraid and desperate. "Help me," he urged, looking up at me. "We need to get to it before they find us." "They?" I echoed, the question slipping out before I could hold it back. Panic fluttered in my chest. "Just please." I dropped to my knees beside him, feeling the cold earth beneath my fingers. Together, we worked in silence, pulling away the leaves and dirt until something hard hit my palm. I paused, my breath hitching. I brushed away more dirt and uncovered a small metal box. "Open it," Carter ordered, his gaze darting around the clearing. My fingers trembled as I clicked the latch and lifted the lid. The hinges creaked, revealing old documents, yellowed and fraying. As I slid one out, the words jumped out at me: military reports from 1995 documenting unexplained encounters with unusual beings. "What the hell is this?" "Evidence," Carter replied. His hands were shaking now. "Evidence of what Delaney found. But we need to move before someone sees us." Just then, a harsh whisper pierced the still night, carrying through the trees, sending icy dread through my veins. "Carter, run!" he shouted, grabbing the box from my hands. I was instantly on my feet, panic flooding through me. We dashed back toward the thicket, branches clawing at my skin. Behind us, I could hear footsteps heavy and purposeful. "Who is coming?" I yelled over the sound of our running. He didn't answer, just urged me to go faster. I was pushing myself to the limit, but the beat of my heart felt loud in my ears. Then, I saw something flicker in the corner of my vision. My instincts screamed. I turned just in time to see a shadowy figure emerging from the tree line, eyes glowing in the dark. I gasped. "Carter!" Before I could say anything else, the figure lunged toward us, its intentions clear and malevolent. My mind raced for a plan, but I knew one thing for certain: we were not alone in this night, and as the darkness closed in, I realized we were in deeper than I had ever anticipated. The rush of adrenaline propelled us through the trees, the underbrush tangling at our feet as we barreled further into the night. I could feel the weight of pursuit behind us, heavy and tangible. The air felt thick, and shadows twisted around us like fingers ready to pull us into darkness. Carter's face was pale as we finally stumbled into an open area, illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the canopy above. It was a small clearing, suffused with an unnatural stillness. What is happening?" I gasped, breathless and pounding against my ribcage. The box Carter had taken from the ground lay nestled against his side, as though it contained some dark secret the world had long buried. "Just give me a moment," he huffed, looking around with wide eyes, every noise seeming to amplify in the silence. The only sound was our heavy breathing and the quickening rustle of leaves underfoot. Suddenly, a flickering motion at the periphery of my vision made me jerk around. A shadow darted back into the trees just beyond the clearing, followed by a low, guttural snarl. Cold dread washed over me. We weren't just running from memories or echoes of the past, there was something following us, something insatiable. Carter fumbled with the box, his fingers trembling as he finally managed to lift the lid again. "We need to make sense of this before it catches up," he urged, pulling out the worn documents and hastily sorting through them. Pages fluttered in the dim light, and I leaned closer, scanning the scribbled notes, diagrams, and words that seemed to pulse with urgency. These documents, they're everything they covered up. They connect to Delaney. Where is she? I demanded, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. Did she make it out of this hell? Carter met my gaze, his expression haunted. That's what we need to find out. If we don't get this information out, we could all be in danger. Footfalls echoed from the darkness surrounding us, a relentless hunting rhythm closing in. Suddenly, I understood. "We have to move," I urged, but he was already scanning the clearing, looking for somewhere to hide or escape. "Look over there." Carter pointed to an ancient, gnarled tree that had turned inward, forming a hollow base. We sprinted toward it, crouching low in the shadowed nook, pressing our backs against the wood. I held my breath, feeling the moment stretch like thick silk, anxious and vibrant. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. I could feel the ground tremor beneath us as something prowled the perimeter of the clearing, sniffing the air with brute curiosity. Carter clutched the box against his chest, his eyes wide with both fear and determination. "Delaney," I whispered, trying to focus past the thumping in my ears. "She must have found something important if they're protecting this secret so desperately." As if in response, a dark shape broke through the trees. It wasn't he fully formed a constant shifting silhouette, human yet not, eyes gleaming unsettlingly from within its shadowy existence. Carter's breath hitched beside me, and the figure paused, as if sensing us hidden away. The whispering began again, a cacophony of voices almost deafening in its urgency. "Help us find the truth." I felt my heart pound in my throat, and primal instinct kicked in. "We need to get out," I urged, but panic spread across Carter's face. "We can't just leave it," he gasped, looking torn between fleeing and unraveling the secrecy. Before I could retort, the figure lunged, and I instinctively shirked back, pulling Carter with me. We dashed away from the tree, bursting out into the open. "Run!" I screamed, not looking back to see if he followed. In the moonlight, the clearing opened before us, but just as I reached for safety, the ground beneath me buckled. A dark form surged from the earth, grasping at my ankles. "Carter!" My voice echoed in terror as I stumbled, falling to the ground. The shadow lunged closer, inches from my face. It was so close that I could feel its cold breath. "Help us!" The voices wove together like a tapestry, haunting and spectral. "Grab the box!" Carter shouted, urgency ringing in his voice as the figure recoiled at our words, as if the contents within the metallic box were powerful enough to interact with the shadows around us. In a moment of chaotic clarity, I scrambled to my feet, shock coursing through my veins. Without thinking, I lunged toward Carter, grasping the box from his startled grip. "Let us see what you're hiding," I muttered, opening the lid. "Stake a chance." The moment I did, the thrumming intensified, drowning all other sound, enveloping us in slow-moving darkness. The pages began to glow, an unnatural light pouring from the documents like a specter emerging from the depths. The shadowy figure faltered, screeching as the whispers turned to frantic cries. "Stop!" It howled, retreating, its previously unyielding presence now filled with desperation. What is happening?" I stammered, my heart racing with terror. "It's reacting to the truth," Carter shouted over the rising cacophony. "Keep reading." I felt oddly compelled, letting the papers slip through my fingers as they danced in the wind, illuminating the despair etched within the very fabric of those forgotten moments. It was all there: the soldiers, the encounters, the darkness that had consumed them. Each report told stories of loss, desperation, and unanswered calls for help. Suddenly, the shadows lunged again, thick and wiry, and I ducked instinctively, gathering the strength to fight. Just as it lunged one last time, the light from the pages flared brighter, backing the darkness away from us. It writhed as if the very essence of what it was recoiled at the exposure of its truths. Together, we moved, pushing the light before us, feeling its strength grow. "We can't stop," I urged, glancing at Carter, who nodded, determination lighting his eyes. In a breathless fury, I threw the pages into the air. They spiraled and wrapped around the figure, brightening the scene like flashes of remembrance. The figure writhed, horrified, with shadows swirling chaotically as if unraveling before us. Then, in an engulfing silence, the figure exploded into a mix of swarming darkness and shattered light, collapsing inward and disintegrating like smoke in the wind. We stood in a clearing, panting, the only noise left the rustle of leaves around us. Just remnants of the past remained, echoes of lost voices, and the profound weight of what lay ahead. Was this the end, or merely an illusion of closure? As I turned to Carter, the realization hit me. Questions pushed at the edges of my mind, but urgency remained. I had to know more. This was just the beginning. What does it all mean? I gasped, feeling the flicker of determination reignite within me. Carter's brow furrowed with both concern and resolve. "We have to go to the coordinates," Delaney left. "There's more to uncover. We can't stop until we've unmasked it all." And just like that, we plunged forward again, this time into an ever-deepening mystery, a truth we had to chase regardless of the consequences. Because something was waiting, something that wanted to either be found or silenced forever. And the journey had just begun.